Now, Tesla's stock has tumbled 8%, pushing its market value below $1 trillion for the first time since November.
It didn't start with protests. It didn't start with lawsuits. Tesla's collapse began the moment customers stopped showing up. For years, Elon Musk's electric empire seemed unstoppable, until the sales numbers told a very different story. First, China's buyers disappeared. Then European orders dried up, and finally, American customers walked away. One by one, the dominoes fell. Behind the headlines, a financial disaster was quietly brewing. So how did Tesla lose its grip so quickly? Why are loyal investors now turning their backs? And is this the moment Elon Musk's entire electric dream finally dies? What's happening? Wall Street does not care about dreams. It cares about numbers. And Tesla's numbers were horrifying. As sales collapsed, the stock market reacted with ruthless efficiency. In the span of just 6 months, Tesla's market capitalization was slashed in half. Investors who had once cheered every tweet from Elon Musk were now cashing out and cutting their losses. The tipping point came when Tesla's quarterly earnings report revealed consecutive revenue declines. The first time in over a decade, shareholders who had believed in the company's endless growth story began to panic. Analysts downgraded Tesla's stock, citing shrinking margins, slowing demand, and growing competition. Institutional investors, who had once considered Tesla a golden goose, started dumping shares at an unprecedented rate. But it wasn't just the big funds pulling out. Insiders, people inside Tesla who knew the company better than anyone, were selling too. Over the course of 2024, Tesla's top executives sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stock. Elon Musk's own brother offloaded tens of millions of dollars in shares. The chief financial officer, the head of operations, and even senior board members followed suit. While Musk appeared on television urging employees and retail investors to hold the line, the people closest to him were quietly cashing out. This wasn't just a financial correction. It was a vote of no confidence from Wall Street and Tesla's own leadership. And when the money fled, something even more dangerous happened. Tesla's leadership fell apart from the inside. As Wall Street turned its back, chaos began to erupt inside Tesla's corporate offices. Real quick, if you're still here, you're clearly locked into this story. So do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. This next part is where things get messy inside Tesla, and you don't want to miss it. Tesla's leadership in chaos. Behind Tesla's glossy marketing and flashy product launches, the company's internal leadership structure was falling apart. The executive exodus that began in early 2024 became a full-blown crisis by the end of the year. Key figures who had helped build Tesla into a global powerhouse were resigning at an alarming rate. It started with quiet departures. Vice presidents, regional managers, and technical directors slipping away without much media attention. But soon, the exits escalated. By the summer of 2024, Tesla's chief financial officer, its chief operating officer, and the head of global sales had all announced their resignations. Many of them cited personal reasons or new opportunities. But the timing was impossible to ignore. Insider reports revealed a toxic culture behind closed doors. Employees described Musk's increasingly erratic leadership style, micromanagement, and abrupt policy changes. Tensions grew worse after the sales collapse and stock crash, as Musk doubled down on cost-cutting, demanding mass layoffs and slashing department budgets without warning. Morale inside Tesla's offices hit rock bottom. The departures were not limited to corporate headquarters. Engineers, designers, and plant managers, people responsible for the nuts and bolts of Tesla's product pipeline, were also leaving in droves. And it wasn't just about money. Many insiders described burnout, frustration, and disillusionment with a company that no longer resembled the innovative startup they had joined. This leadership vacuum crippled Tesla's ability to respond to the growing crisis. With every executive departure, the company's internal structure weakened, making it harder to fix production issues, execute strategy, or calm investors. But the damage did not stop at boardrooms and balance sheets. Tesla's very products, once seen as untouchable, began to fall apart in public view. Tesla's dream becomes a nightmare. Tesla's most public failure was the Cybertruck. After years of hype and production delays, Tesla finally began deliveries of the angular, stainless steel beast. But instead of applause, the rollout became a public relations nightmare. Customers reported everything from loose trim panels to software glitches. More alarmingly, multiple Cybertruck units were recalled due to structural defects that compromised crash safety. Then came the lawsuits. Owners who had pre-ordered Cybertrucks expecting industry-leading safety and reliability filed class action suits when the vehicles fell short of advertised performance. Consumer watchdog groups and federal regulators joined the pile-on, launching investigations into misleading marketing claims. But the Cybertruck debacle was only half the story. Tesla's crown jewel, its full self-driving technology, became a liability. After years of promising that Tesla vehicles would soon drive themselves, the technology remained incomplete and dangerous. A string of accidents involving Tesla's self-driving systems led to federal probes, safety recalls, and mounting legal pressure. The software failed in critical scenarios, misidentifying obstacles, failing to recognize pedestrians, or veering into oncoming traffic. And each crash further eroded public trust in Tesla's tech leadership. What had once been the company's greatest asset was now its greatest risk. But as Tesla's products crumbled, something far more explosive was brewing outside the company walls. A full-scale public backlash that would send shockwaves across the globe. Showrooms under siege. It began slowly, like cracks forming in a dam no one thought could break. A handful of scattered protests outside Tesla dealerships, at first dismissed as harmless noise by corporate executives and media pundits alike. But as weeks passed, those isolated demonstrations metastasized into a global movement, one that physically engulfed Tesla's most prized real estate: their showrooms, service centers, and supercharger stations. By the time the company realized what was happening, Tesla dealerships in cities like New York, Chicago, Berlin, and even Shanghai were being targeted almost daily. In San Diego, California, angry demonstrators chained themselves to showroom doors, blocking employees and potential customers from entering. In Chicago, protesters covered the glass windows of Tesla stores with massive posters accusing Elon Musk of political manipulation and corporate greed. In London, activists spray-painted slogans across Tesla logos and plastered the walls with damning images of Musk's controversial political stances. The protests were creative, relentless, and impossible to ignore. But it did not stop there. In rural towns and major metropolitan areas alike, Tesla supercharger stations became flashpoints for vandalism. Charging ports were smashed, cables cut, and entire banks of chargers defaced with graffiti. Some locations were set ablaze. Arson attacks that made international headlines. Suddenly, owning a Tesla was no longer just a status symbol. It had become a political statement, and in some cases a personal liability. The sheer scale and geographic spread of these physical protests had no precedent in automotive history. Never before had an entire brand's public-facing infrastructure become a battleground. Tesla's carefully curated image of innovation and progress was literally being defaced in real time, showroom by showroom, charger by charger. And with every smashed window and burned charging station, public opinion hardened against the company. But while the fires burned outside Tesla's showrooms, a quieter, even more devastating movement was taking shape online, one that would strike at the very heart of Tesla's customer base. How anti-Elon sentiment took over. The protests on the streets were loud, but the real revolution against Tesla was being waged silently behind phone screens and keyboards. What started as scattered outrage online quickly evolved into a global digital movement united by a single goal: to bring down Elon Musk's empire, one customer at a time. It began with hashtags, small viral seeds that exploded across social media platforms like wildfire. Phrases such as "boycott Tesla," "dump Musk," and "sell your Tesla" trended on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Videos of vandalized Teslas, irate former customers, and viral threads exposing Musk's political alliances flooded the internet. Every new protest, every controversial Musk tweet, and every headline about Tesla's troubles fueled the movement further. But this was not just social media noise. it turned into an organized, systematic effort. Websites like TeslaTakedown.com appeared, serving as a central hub for activists and disgruntled former customers. The strategy was simple yet devastating. Convince current Tesla owners to dump their vehicles at discounted prices, flooding the used market and crashing Tesla's resale value. Ex-Tesla owners who once proudly showcased their electric vehicles began publicly posting their disillusionment. Forums and YouTube channels dedicated to Tesla fandom pivoted almost overnight, turning into spaces of criticism and regret. They documented quality issues, political concerns, and personal reasons for abandoning the brand. The online ecosystem that once championed Tesla became a megaphone for its downfall. This digital movement spread like a contagion. It was not about finance or Wall Street. It was about reshaping the narrative of who Elon Musk was and what Tesla represented. For every protest in the streets, there were tens of thousands of posts, videos, and comment threads online, amplifying the anger. By the time Tesla executives took notice, the damage was already done. The anti-Tesla movement had become self-sustaining, growing stronger with each viral video, each repost, and each former fan who turned against the company. But as the online fury grew, another storm was brewing. One even Tesla's most loyal supporters could no longer ignore. It was not vandalism or social media campaigns. It was the political firestorm Elon Musk himself had ignited. The political firestorm. Elon Musk's decision to publicly align himself with former President Donald Trump was meant to be strategic. Musk believed that by cozying up to Trump's administration, he could secure lucrative government contracts, regulatory favors, and political insulation from rising competition. But what Musk failed to calculate was how quickly and violently that alliance would backfire. Tesla's customer base had always leaned liberal and progressive. These were environmentally conscious consumers who viewed Tesla as more than a car company. They saw it as a beacon of clean energy and innovation. Musk's endorsement of Trump in public appearances with administration officials shattered that image overnight. Progressive Tesla owners felt betrayed. Their once beloved brand, synonymous with sustainability and progress, was now openly tied to a political figure many of them despised. Musk's political pivot alienated the very people who had championed him for over a decade. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Liberal influencers, tech industry leaders, and environmental activists condemned Musk's political affiliations. Longtime Tesla fans announced their decision to sell their cars and cut financial ties with the company. Media outlets that once celebrated Musk's accomplishments now ran scathing headlines questioning his ethics and integrity. And it was not just customers. Musk's political maneuvering sparked investigations, congressional hearings, and regulatory pushback. His alliance with Trump had opened doors, but those same doors now swung shut as public outrage grew. The protests in the streets and the boycott movement online were powerful. But this political firestorm set Tesla's brand ablaze in a way that no broken window or viral hashtag could match. It tore at the very identity of the company and its relationship with its most loyal supporters. And as the dust settled, Tesla was left with a deeper, more insidious problem: the irreversible death of brand loyalty. The death of brand loyalty. The combined weight of physical protests, digital boycotts, and political controversy eroded that loyalty at an alarming rate. Customers who had once paid premium prices for Tesla vehicles now questioned every decision the company made. Trust, once the bedrock of Tesla's brand, crumbled in real time. Surveys showed plummeting approval ratings among key demographics. Progressive and environmentally focused consumers, the same people who had once made Tesla a cultural phenomenon, were abandoning the brand in droves. Forums and comment sections filled with former Tesla fans sharing why they had walked away. The problem was deeper than sales numbers or falling stock prices. It was a fundamental loss of public trust, the kind of damage that no advertising campaign or flashy product launch could fix. Tesla's brand had become toxic to many of the very customers who had built it, and as the company scrambled to contain the fallout, A new threat loomed on the horizon, not from customers or activists, but from the federal government itself. A crackdown was coming, and it would strike at the heart of Tesla's business model, Tesla's self-driving tech under attack. Elon Musk has consistently claimed that Tesla's greatest weapon isn't just electric power, it's autonomy. The company's full self-driving software was supposed to change transportation forever. But behind the glossy software updates and grand press releases, a quiet but relentless storm was brewing. Regulators, consumer watchdogs, and accident victims' families were all closing in. By the time Donald Trump returned to office in January of 2025, that storm had become a full-blown hurricane aimed squarely at Tesla. The new administration wasted no time. Within Trump's first 100 days, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announced a formal investigation into Tesla's full self-driving system. Their findings were devastating. The agency confirmed that at least 37 fatalities across the United States were linked to Tesla vehicles operating in autonomous mode. Worse, internal documents from Tesla leaked during the inquiry revealed that the company's own engineers had repeatedly warned executives about safety risks, warnings that were allegedly ignored. The Department of Justice followed quickly, launching a criminal inquiry into whether Tesla had deliberately misled consumers and investors about the safety and capabilities of its self-driving system. Lawsuits flooded in from grieving families and angry customers, alleging that Musk's promises of a fully autonomous future had put lives at risk. Consumer advocacy groups demanded recalls, while state regulators in California and New York moved to restrict Tesla's autonomous testing. Musk's self-driving dream, once pitched as a way to save lives and revolutionize mobility, was now viewed as a dangerous gamble. Even loyal Tesla fans began questioning whether the technology was ready, or if it ever would be. What had started as a technical investigation had become a legal and ethical nightmare. And as Tesla's leadership scrambled to contain the fallout, the federal government prepared its next move, a policy shift that would hit even harder: the new EV policy. That sidelined Tesla. Just as the regulatory noose tightened around Tesla's self-driving program, the Trump administration delivered another devastating blow. This time, it came not from lawsuits or investigations, but from the heart of Trump's economic policy, the push for Made in America. In April of 2025, Trump signed the American EV Leadership Act, a sweeping piece of legislation designed to boost domestic electric vehicle manufacturing. But buried deep in the bill's language was a clear message: Tesla would no longer receive special treatment. The law tied all federal EV subsidies and tax incentives exclusively to companies with over 80% of their workforce and production facilities based in the United States. That might have seemed like a patriotic move, but for Tesla, it was a dagger to the heart. While Tesla had factories in California, Texas, and Nevada, it also relied heavily on global supply chains, Chinese battery partnerships, and European manufacturing. By contrast, Ford, General Motors, and even new players like Rivian and Lucid had spent years preparing for a domestic production renaissance. Almost overnight, Tesla's vehicles became thousands of dollars more expensive compared to its American competitors. Federal tax credits that once gave Tesla a competitive edge vanished. Fleet buyers, government agencies, and price-conscious consumers shifted their attention to the companies now backed by Trump's America First EV agenda. And the pain didn't stop there. The American EV Leadership Act also included federal grants and exclusive government contracts for domestic manufacturers, contracts Tesla was now locked out of. The financial implications were catastrophic. But while Trump's domestic policy had cut Tesla off at the knees, an even larger geopolitical force was about to hit Musk's empire from the other side of the Pacific: Tesla's collapse abroad. The final nail in Tesla's coffin abroad came not from Washington, but from Beijing. Long before Musk became a political lightning rod in the United States, Tesla's fate in China had already been unraveling. But when Trump's administration began aggressively reworking trade policies and restricting Chinese technology exports, Beijing responded in kind, and Tesla became collateral damage. By the summer of 2025, the Chinese government announced sweeping new regulations aimed specifically at foreign electric vehicle manufacturers. Overnight, Tesla's access to Chinese subsidies, tax incentives, and key supply chains vanished. State-backed automakers like BYD, NIO, and XPeng were elevated as the new champions of China's EV future, while Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory faced increasing regulatory hurdles. The message from Beijing was clear: Tesla was no longer welcome. Tesla's sales in China, which once accounted for nearly one-third of its global revenue, plummeted by over 50% within 3 months. Nationalist campaigns on social media urged consumers to buy Chinese-made for Chinese roads. Provincial governments added new taxes and inspection requirements, targeting Tesla vehicles, further discouraging purchases. Worse, Tesla's reliance on Chinese battery manufacturers and mineral suppliers exposed its vulnerability. As trade relations soured, key contracts were canceled or renegotiated under brutal terms. Production costs skyrocketed. Delivery delays became the norm. And customers in China, once enamored with Tesla's brand, began abandoning the company en masse. And as the storm raged overseas, Tesla's troubles at home were reaching their breaking point. Because while the loss of Chinese market share was devastating, nothing compared to the final collapse of Tesla's government lifeline. A collapse that would redefine the company's future. As Tesla's empire crumbled abroad and at home, the last protective wall holding it together was about to fall. Desperate PR and stock stunts. The collapse wasn't quiet, it wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't accidental. As Tesla's stock free fell, sales dried up, and public support evaporated, Elon Musk did what he always does when he loses control. He doubled down on chaos. But this time, his old tricks weren't working. Musk's response wasn't to fix the core problems inside Tesla. It wasn't about building better cars or repairing customer trust. No, instead, he launched a desperate, hyper-visible campaign to distract, deflect, and delay the inevitable. Surprise meetings with employees were live-streamed to reassure the public. Musk began filing lawsuits against critics and even politicians. He flooded social media with statements, memes, and political endorsements to rile up his base. It was classic Musk: confuse the narrative, keep the spotlight, and hope the stock would bounce back on noise alone. But the markets weren't listening anymore. Investors who had once cheered Musk's antics now saw panic, not genius. The desperate media blitz only fueled the perception that Tesla was spiraling out of control. Wall Street called it what it was: damage control with no clear plan. Musk staged emergency town hall meetings, pleading with employees to hold their shares. He told them the protests, the lawsuits, the falling sales were temporary. But behind the scenes, even Musk's most loyal executives were quietly cashing out, and the media circus only made things worse. The louder Musk shouted, the more obvious it became. Tesla wasn't leading anymore. It was reacting, cornered, and terrified. And when the CEO starts playing defense instead of innovating, markets don't forgive. Insiders and institutions flee Tesla. While Elon Musk grabbed headlines with lawsuits and live-streamed speeches, something far more terrifying was happening behind the scenes. The people who knew Tesla best, the ones sitting at the top, were quietly bailing out. Insiders, board members, and longtime institutional investors weren't waiting for the recovery. They were running for the exits. It started subtly. Over the span of just 3 months, Tesla executives dumped over 745,000 shares. These were not small players. These were the top decision makers, the people closest to Tesla's financial engine. Elon Musk's own brother, Kimball Musk, offloaded millions of dollars worth of stock. Tesla's chief financial officer did the same. And the company's board members, who had once publicly defended Tesla's future, were now selling their shares at an alarming pace. It wasn't just insiders, the institutions followed quickly. Hedge funds, mutual funds, and longtime institutional investors began pulling their money out. Firms that had once touted Tesla as the future of transportation were now divesting quietly, reducing their exposure before the crash became irreversible. For Wall Street, these moves were the ultimate red flag. When insiders sell, it's a warning. When they sell at this scale, it's a scream. But Musk's media circus drowned out the warning bells. The public focused on Elon's Twitter feuds and public stunts, while the real story unfolded behind the scenes. The people who knew the numbers, who understood Tesla's balance sheet, were telling the market something very clear. They no longer believed. And once institutional confidence evaporates, retail investors follow. Tesla's stock had always been propped up by belief. Belief in Elon Musk's vision, belief in endless growth. But when the architects of that belief start cashing out, the bubble doesn't just deflate, it bursts. The anti-Elon movement didn't need Wall Street to turn against Musk. They made customers and future buyers lose faith. And once that domino fell, the rest of the empire followed. The death of a dream. Could Tesla go bankrupt? The signs are everywhere. Investors are gone. Sales are falling. Public trust is shattered. Tesla's self-driving promises remain unfulfilled. And its core business is bleeding cash. The company that once ruled the electric vehicle world now finds itself fighting just to survive. Customers lost faith first. They walked away from Tesla showrooms, choosing competitors with less baggage and better prices. Employees soon followed, demoralized by mass layoffs, internal chaos, and a leadership team more focused on public relations than innovation. Investors, sensing the collapse, fled in droves, cashing out before it was too late. And at the center of it all, Elon Musk, who once promised to change the world, was now scrambling to save his empire through lawsuits, emergency meetings, and political theater. Tesla's decline wasn't a fluke. It was a slow, visible unraveling caused by hubris, mismanagement, and the collapse of a belief system that had fueled the company's meteoric rise. So here we are. The dream of Tesla has become a nightmare of lawsuits, protests, and financial ruin. And the question left hanging in the air is the one nobody wants to answer. Is this how the Tesla story ends? Not with a bang, but with a bankruptcy filing? That is the question every investor, every employee, and every former customer is now quietly asking themselves. And there you have it, the shocking unraveling of what was once the world's most valuable electric vehicle empire. From collapsing sales to insider sell-offs, public protests to political chaos, Tesla's fall wasn't just a business story, it was a cultural earthquake. But here's what I want to know from you. Do you think this is the end of Tesla? Is Elon Musk's empire too big to fail? Or is bankruptcy just around the corner? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Was it the political drama, the product failures, or the broken trust that did the most damage? Or do you believe Tesla can somehow claw its way back from the brink?